Hey guys, tonight we plunge into the treacherous life of serving a Chinese emperor, where every sunrise drags you deeper into a world of glittering palaces and crushing demands. Picture this. You're standing in the Forbidden City, its red walls towering like a cage under a dawn sky streaked with gold. The air hums with the clatter of jade ornaments and the whispers of courtiers plotting behind silk screens. Your coarse tunic scratches your skin, and your stomach growls, but you're too busy bowing to notice. Serving an emperor isn't just a job, it's a life sentence, and you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before dawn, your straw mat barely cushioning the cold stone floor of the servants' quarters. The emperor's palace buzzes with an eerie rhythm, like a hive where every drone knows its place or else. You're one of thousands, a faceless cog in the machine of imperial glory, serving a ruler seen as heaven's son, the son of heaven, they call him, his every whim a divine command. Miss a step, and you're not just fired, you're erased. The Han Dynasty, around 100 BCE, set the tone for this grind, with emperors like Wu employing armies of servants to keep the empire's heart beating. You're not here by choice. Maybe your family sold you to settle a debt, or you were born into this servitude, your fate sealed before your first cry. Your day begins with a checklist longer than a scroll of Confucian proverbs. You might be hauling water from wells half a mile away, your shoulders aching under wooden yokes. Or you're scrubbing marble floors until your knuckles bleed, knowing the emperor might never even walk this hall. The palace is a labyrinth of excess golden dragons carved into pillars, incense so thick it stings your eyes. Yet, for you, it's a prison. You overhear nobles debating taxes or wars, their voices dripping with privilege, while you're lucky to eat a bowl of millet gruel before collapsing at night. And here's a quirky twist. Some servants were tasked with tasting the emperor's food, not just for poison but to ensure it matched his mood. Imagine risking death because His Majesty didn't fancy spicy noodles today. The stakes are sky high. Historians still argue whether emperors valued loyalty or feared betrayal more, but either way, you're caught in the crossfire. One wrong move like spilling tea or eyeing a concubine too long could land you in a dungeon, or worse. The emperor's divine status means his wrath is godly, and mercy, that's rarer than a phoenix sighting. You learn fast to keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your steps silent, but there's no safety in silence, not when every day tests your endurance. You trudge through corridors, dodging the emperor's temper and the court's schemes, wondering if tomorrow will be your last. It's not just about surviving the day, it's about surviving the system, and that's a game stacked against you. Let's lighten the mood for a second. Imagine you're carrying a tray of jade cups, and one slip scratch. The whole court stares like you just insulted Confucius himself. You'd probably wish you could vanish into the emperor's pet koi pond, right? But no, you're stuck, heart-pounding, waiting for judgment. And judgment is coming, whether it's a whipping or a one-way trip to the afterlife. The palace is a stage, and you're not the star, you're the prop, expected to perform flawlessly or pay the price. As the sun sets, you're still working, lighting lanterns while nobles feast. You're invisible, yet every move is watched. This is your life now, and it's only the beginning. You're deep in the emperor's world now, tiptoeing through a maze of rules tighter than a scholar's calligraphy. The palace hums with tension, every gesture and word weighed like gold on a merchant's scale. One wrong move, and you're not just out of a job, you're gone. Maybe for good. The court's etiquette is a beast, and you're learning its claws the hard way. It's the Tang dynasty, say around 700 CE, and the emperor's court is a glittering trap where survival hinges on knowing your place. You're not just serving, you're performing, every bow and step choreographed to avoid disaster. Picture yourself in a vast hall, crimson pillars looming, the air thick with the scent of sandalwood and fear. You're carrying a silk scroll, a minor task, but the emperor's eyes might flicker your way. Bow too low, and you look desperate. Too shallow, and you're disrespectful. The rules are endless. Never speak unless spoken to, never meet the emperor's gaze, never turn your back on him. You've heard stories of servants who forgot to kneel at the right moment, poof, vanished into the night, their families left wondering. The Tang court, famous for its poetry and art, was also a machine of control, with records showing thousands of servants disciplined or worse for tiny infractions. And here's a weird tidbit. Some emperors demanded servants walk backward when leaving their presence, a bizarre dance to show respect. You try it, shuffling awkwardly, praying you don't trip over a jade vase. One misstep, and the court's whispers turn to accusations. You're not just dodging the emperor's wrath, but also the nobles' schemes. They're like vultures, circling for any slip to boost their own status. You overhear a minister plotting to frame a rival, and you know better than to get involved. Silence is your shield, but it's flimsy. Historians still argue whether these strict rules were about maintaining order or just flexing imperial power. Either way, you're caught in the system's gears. You spend hours memorizing protocols: when to kowtow, how to address a consort, which hand to use for offering tea. It's exhausting, like studying for an exam where failing means exile or worse. And the punishments? They're creative. You might be flogged, demoted to cleaning latrines, or sent to a frontier garrison where bandits outnumber soldiers. The lucky ones just lose their heads quick and done. Let's pause for a chuckle. Imagine you're serving wine, and you sneeze a right into the emperor's cup. The whole court freezes, like you just cursed the harvest. You'd probably wish you could dive into that wine jug and disappear, right? But no, you're stuck, facing a room of stone-faced nobles. You mumble an apology, knowing it won't save you. The emperor might laugh it off, but more likely, you're headed for a reassignment to some dusty outpost. Humor doesn't save you here. It just delays the inevitable. The worst part? The rules shift. One day, the emperor loves your quiet efficiency. The next, he demands chatter to ease his boredom. You're walking a tightrope, blindfolded, with no net. And the court spies are everywhere: eunuchs, maids, even the guy polishing the bronze mirrors. They report every slip, real or invented, to curry favor. You learn to trust no one, not even the servant sharing your rice. Friendships are risks. Loyalty is to the emperor alone. By night, you collapse on your mat, head spinning with rules, wondering how long you can keep this up. The palace's beauty hides its truth. It's a gilded cage, and you're not flying out. You're still trapped in the emperor's world, where rest is a myth, and every moment tests your endurance. The palace never sleeps, and neither do you. Not really. Dawn breaks, and you're already up, hauling buckets of water or polishing jade statues until your hands blister. It's the Song dynasty now, around 1100 CE, when emperors like Huizong obsessed over art and ceremony. But for you, it's just another day of grinding labor. The imperial machine demands perfection, and you're the fuel burning out fast. Imagine the weight of it. You trudge through courtyards, sweat stinging your eyes, carrying trays of steaming dumplings or stacks of silk robes. Your tasks are endless cleaning, fetching, repairing, bowing. You might spend hours grinding ink for a scholar's calligraphy, only for him to toss it because the shade's off. Or you're sweeping leaves from a garden path the emperor might never walk. The Song Court, known for its bureaucracy, employed tens of thousands of servants, each role a tiny cog in a relentless system. Your body aches, your feet throb, but stopping isn't an option. Pause too long, and a supervisor's whip finds your back. Here's a quirky detail. Some servants were assigned to care for the emperor's pet birds, fanning them to keep them cool, or singing to them to improve their mood. Picture you warbling to a finch while nobles snicker nearby. You'd feel ridiculous, but you'd do it because refusing means punishment. The emperor's whims are law, and you're the one bending to them, no matter how absurd. Historians still argue whether this relentless workload was designed to break spirits or just keep the palace running. Either way, you're caught in its churn, your life measured in tasks completed, not moments lived. You eat when you can, usually cold rice or scraps from the imperial kitchens. Sleep, maybe 4 hours if the overseer's in a good mood. You share a cramped room with other servants. Their snores a grim lullaby. The palace's beauty its lacquered beams. Its lotus ponds mocks your exhaustion. You're surrounded by wealth but own nothing, not even your time, and the pressure never lets up. One day you're hauling firewood, the next you're polishing armor for a parade you'll never see. Every task feels like a test, and failure isn't graded, it's punished. Let's lighten things up for a second. Imagine you're carrying a towering stack of scrolls, and a gust of wind scatters them across the courtyard. You're scrambling, chasing paper like a cat after a laser pointer, while a courtier glares like you've ruined his day. You'd laugh if you weren't terrified of the consequences. But there's no time to dwell, another task is waiting. Always. The emperor's schedule drives everything, from banquets to rituals, and you're the invisible force keeping it all afloat. The worst part is the monotony. Day after day, it's the same grind, the same fear of slipping up. You hear whispers of servants who collapsed from exhaustion, only to be replaced without a second thought. Loyalty doesn't earn you rest, it just tightens the chain. You dream of escape, but where would you go? The world outside the palace is just as harsh for someone like you. No land, no status, no hope. So you keep moving, keep working, keep surviving. The sun sets, and you're still at it, lighting lanterns or folding linens, your body screaming for a break that never comes. This is your life, and it's wearing you thin. You're still caught in the emperor's palace, where the air feels heavier now, thick with the weight of incense and dread. The grind of daily tasks hasn't let up, but now you're pulled into something darker rituals where the emperor's divine status demands more than just your labor. It's the Qin dynasty, around 221 BCE, when the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, ruled with an iron fist and an obsession with eternity. You're not just serving his life now, you're tangled in ceremonies that might end yours, where servants like you are less than props they're offerings. Imagine you're standing in a moonlit courtyard, the cold stone chilling your bare feet. Torches flicker, casting eerie shadows on a massive altar draped in crimson silk. You're holding a bronze censer, its heat searing your palms, while priests chant prayers to appease heaven. The emperor, cloaked in dragon-embroidered robes, believes his rule binds the earth to the cosmos, and rituals are his way of proving it. But here's the grim reality. Some ceremonies call for blood sacrifice, not always animals either. Historical records from the Qin dynasty hint at servants being retired in mass burials or ritual executions to honor the emperor's ancestors or secure his divine favor. You've heard whispers of colleagues who carried ritual wine to an altar and never came back. Here's a strange tidbit. The rituals involve dressing servants in ceremonial robes to mimic gods or spirits, only to send them to the afterlife as a divine messengers. Picture you, draped in silk you'd never afford, knowing it's basically your costume for a one-way trip. You're trembling, wondering if tonight's the night you're picked. Historians still debate whether these practices were symbolic or literal. Did they really kill that many servants, or was it mostly for show? Either way, the fear's real enough for you. You're not here to question, you're here to survive. Eyes down, hands steady. The rituals aren't just rare events, they're woven into the palace's pulse. You might be tasked with preparing the altar, hauling jade statues, or arranging offerings of fruit and incense. Every step feels like a countdown. You overhear priests discussing the emperor's cosmic balance, and you know that could mean your life. The emperor's divine status makes it worse his whims are heaven's will, so there's no appealing for mercy. You're disposable, a pawn in a cosmic chess match. And the court's watching, nobles eyeing you like your livestock, their own status tied to the ritual's success. Let's try for a quick laugh. Imagine you're carrying a ceremonial bell, massive and shiny, and you trip, letting out a gong that echoes like a bad sitcom sound effect. The priests glare like you've insulted their ancestors, and you'd wish you could melt into the shadows. But there's no escape. You mumble apologies. You're mumbling apologies, knowing a mistake could mark you for the next sacrifice. The ritual. The tension's thicker than a winter fog, and you're walking right into it. The worst is the waiting. You finish your tasks polishing ritual daggers, arranging lotus bloom sand, then stand in line, heart pounding, as priests choose who'll ascend tonight. You're praying it's not you, but you can't show it. Fear is weakness, and weakness is death. You think of your family, maybe a village you'll never see again, but there's no time for sentiment. The chant rises, drums pound, and you're swept into the ritual's rhythm, hoping you'll walk away when it's over. The palace's beauty, its gilded roofs, its starlit gardens feels like a cruel joke now. This is your life, and it might end under heaven's gaze. You're neck deep in the emperor's palace, where every day feels like a tightrope walk over a pit of spikes. The endless tasks and eerie rituals, remember those torchlit altars, have worn you thin. But now you face a choice that could redefine your existence or end it. You're standing at a crossroads. Become a eunuch, trading a piece of yourself for a shot at power, or remain a faceless servant, grinding away until you're dust. It's the Ming dynasty, around 1420 CE, when eunuchs like Zheng He sailed oceans and swayed emperors. But the price of their influence was a knife's edge, literally. You're weighing this gamble, and it's heavier than the jade statues you polish. Picture yourself in a shadowed corner of the palace, catching your breath after hauling scrolls for a courtier who didn't even glance your way. The air smells of ink and wax, and you're watching a eunuch glide past, his violet robes whispering against the floor. He's not like Yuskaring, invisible. His words make nobles pause. His presence shifts the room's gravity. In the Ming court, eunuchs weren't just servants, they were power brokers. Historical records show they controlled imperial treasuries, led armies, and even shaped foreign policy. Zhang He, a eunuch admiral, commanded fleets to Africa, bringing back giraffes for the emperor's zoo. But the cost? A brutal surgery, a life of stigma, and no guarantee you'll rise above the scorn. Let's pause for a chuckle. Imagine you're mulling this choice while scrubbing a courtyard, muttering about power versus, well, you know. A passing gardener overhears, smirks, and you wish you could vanish into the koi pond. But the decision's no joke. Becoming a eunuch means castration crude, painful, and risky. You've heard the stories. A back room, a blade, no numbing herbs, just a straw for, let's call it, post-op care. If you survive, you might climb the ranks. Maybe manage a silk workshop, or advise the emperor himself. But if the surgery fails, sir, you don't impress. You're just another broken servant, mocked by the court and haunted by what you lost. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some eunuchs received consolation gifts, like pet parrots or monkeys, meant to replace the families they'd never have. Picture you, post-surgery, with a squawking bird on your shoulder while you balance imperial ledgers. It's absurd, but it's the palace's twisted logic give you a pet to distract from the void. Historians still argue whether eunuchs were ambitious schemers who chose this path, or desperate souls forced into it by poverty or slavery. For you, it's not a debate, it's survival. You're maybe 20, your hands rough from years of fetching water and scrubbing floors. You've seen servants like you disappear. Those rituals still haunt your dreams. This is your shot to be more, but at what cost? You think it over during your rare breaks, leaning against a pillar while the palace hums around you. The Ming court is a web of intrigue, and eunuchs are its spiders. They run the emperor's inner circle, oversee his meals, even guard his concubines. Some, like the powerful Wang Zhen, amassed fortunes and toppled rivals. But the surgery's only the first hurdle. Recovery takes weeks, and infections common many don't make it. If you do, you're trained in courtly arts, calligraphy, protocol, maybe even espionage. You'd need to outsmart nobles who despise you, calling you half-man behind their fans. Even other eunuchs might betray you for favor. It's a snake pit, and you're not sure you're venomous enough. Let's try another light moment. Imagine you're practicing your eunuch swagger, strutting like that robed figure you saw, only to trip over a broom. A maid giggles, and you're red-faced, wondering if you're cut out for this, pun intended. But the stakes are too high for embarrassment. You've seen success stories, a eunuch who gifted the emperor a jade lion and earned a mansion, but you've also seen failure eunuchs exiled for a misspoken word, their scars a lifelong badge of regret. The palace doesn't reward effort, it rewards results. You'd need to navigate plots thicker than winter porridge, always watching your back. The process itself is cloaked in dread. You'd be whisked to a hidden chamber, sworn to silence. The surgeons are no healers, just men with knives and grim efficiency. You've heard it's over fast, but the pain lingers, and the risk of death hovers like a vulture. If you pull through, you're reborn not as a man, but as something else. The court sees you as a tool, useful but flawed. You'd gain access to secrets, maybe learn which prince is plotting against the emperor, but every whisper comes with danger. One wrong alliance, like backing a disgraced minister, and you're banished to a desert outpost if you're lucky. You lie on your straw mat at night, the palace's lanterns casting faint glows through the window. Your roommates snore, oblivious to your turmoil. You think of your village, a hazy memory of fields and faces you'll never see again. Staying a servant means safety, but it's a slow, death-hauling firewood until your body quits. Becoming a eunuch offers a ladder, but it's greased with blood. You picture that robed figure again, his confidence, his power. Could that be you? Or would you end up like the whispers, say broken, forgotten, a ghost in silk? The choice gnaws at you during every task. You're folding linens, and your mind drifts to the surgery's risks. You're sweeping a hall, and you wonder if you could outwit the court's vipers. Another laugh to ease the tension. Imagine you're so nervous you drop a tray of cups, and they shatter like your hopes. A courtier glares and you're scrambling, thinking, great, I'd probably botch being a eunuch too. But you can't shake the allure. Power means safety, maybe even respect. You could eat meat, not gruel, sleep on silk, not straw, but the cost is permanent, a wound no rank can heal. You talk to an older servant, his face lined with years of toil. He warns you, eunuchs live longer than us, but not happier. His words sting, but you're not sure he's right. You've seen eunuchs laugh with the emperor, while you're lucky to glimpse him from 100 paces. Yet, the risks pile up: surgery, betrayal, isolation. You're young, but not naive. The palace is a chessboard, and you're not even a pawn yet. Becoming a eunuch might make you a knight, but knights fall too. You're back to your tasks now, carrying water, head down. The choice looms, a shadow you can't outrun. This is the emperor's world, and every path is a gamble. You're still shackled to the emperor's palace, the echo of that eunuch's choice. Remember those silk robes and grim whispers, fading into the grind of daily survival. But now, a colder truth seeps into your bones. Your service doesn't end when your heart stops. It's the Han Dynasty, around 100 BCE, and emperors like Wu, obsessed with their divine mandate, believe they rule beyond the grave. You're learning, with a shiver, that serving the Son of Heaven means you might be bound to him in the afterlife, your body or spirit dragged into his eternal court. Picture yourself in a sprawling necropolis, far from the palace's golden roofs, where the air is heavy with earth and damp stone. You're deep in a tomb under construction, torchlight flickering on walls carved with dragons and clouds. Your hands are raw from hauling clay figurines, thousands of soldiers, horses, and servants, each a palm-sized ghost meant to serve the emperor in his next life. The Han Dynasty's burial practices, documented in texts like the Shiji, show emperors built entire underground palaces, staffed by these figures or, in darker times, by real people. You've heard tales of servants chosen to join their master forever, their screams silenced by the tomb's seal. Your stomach knots as you place another clay warrior, wondering if it's a stand-in for you. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some tombs held miniature kitchens, complete with clay chefs and tiny pots, so the emperor's ghost could feast eternally. Imagine you, sweating in the tomb's chill, arranging a ceramic banquet, muttering, "Hope His Majesty likes ghost noodles." It's absurd, but the stakes aren't. Historians still debate whether human sacrifices were common in the Han era, or if clay figures largely replaced them by then. Some argue only the Qin dynasty, centuries earlier, buried servants en masse. Others point to scattered Han records, suggesting the practice lingered. Either way, the threat looms over you like a storm. You're not just crafting an afterlife, you're staring into your own. Your days are now a grim dance between palace and tomb. In the Forbidden City, you're still dodging court etiquette. Those backward-walking exits still trip you up, and hauling supplies water, silk, or incense for rituals. But increasingly you're sent to the emperor's burial site, a sprawling maze of chambers and tunnels. You carry bronze vessels, heavy as your fears, or stack jade tablets inscribed with prayers. The work is relentless. One day, you're chiseling stone for a sarcophagus. The next, you're painting murals of celestial battles to guide the emperor's soul. Mercury, meant to mimic rivers in his afterlife realm, burns your throat as you pour it into channels. You've seen workers collapse, their faces grey from the poison, but the overseers whip you forward. The emperor's eternity is all that matters. Let's try for a laugh to ease the dread. Picture you dropping a clay horse, its legs snapping like bad chopsticks. The overseer glares, and you quip, "Guess the emperor's riding a tripod now." You'd chuckle if your heart wasn't racing. The tomb feels alive, its silence louder than the palace's bustle. You work alongside other servants, their faces drawn, eyes avoiding yours. No one speaks of the honor of eternal service, but you all know the stories. Some servants went willingly, drugged with wine or promises of glory. Others were bound and dragged. The emperor's divine status's role as heaven's son makes it sacred. To serve him forever is a privilege, they say. To you, it's a trap. Back in the palace, the emperor's presence feels heavier. You glimpse him during a banquet, his dragon robes gleaming, and wonder if he's already picking his afterlife retinue. You're still scrubbing floors or lighting lanterns, but every task carries a new weight. You overhear priests chanting about the eternal court, listing names for the tomb. Your name hasn't surfaced, but the fear gnaws like a rat. You're not old, maybe 25, but age means nothing here. The palace is a machine, and your fuel burned in life, then maybe buried in death. Another chuckle to break the tension. Imagine you're hauling a massive urn, and it tips, splashing you with ceremonial oil. You stand there, slick as a fish, while a guard snickers, "Ready for the emperor's ghost bath?" You'd laugh, but the tomb's pull is relentless. You're back underground, placing figurines in perfect rows, each one a mirror of your own fragility. The clay servants stare back, their painted eyes blank, and you wonder if you'll join them. The emperor's afterlife is a palace of its own, with courts, armies, even gardens, all crafted to his whim. You're building it, piece by piece, knowing you might be part of the decor. The worst is the uncertainty. You work in silence. The only sounds, the clink of tools and the priest's distant chants. You think of your family, a village you barely remember, now replaced by this stone prison. Escape is a fantasy. Deserters are hunted, their families punished. You've heard of servants who tried, only to be dragged back and offered to the tomb as penance. Loyalty is your only shield, but it's paper thin. You're told the emperor's afterlife needs you, that your service ensures cosmic balance. But you feel expendable, a pebble in a river that flows only for him. Let's sneak in one more laugh. You're arranging tiny clay musicians, and one's lute snaps off. You whisper, "Hope the emperor's ghost likes avant-garde," but the overseer's glare kills your grin. The work drags on, stacking silk bales, polishing jade, carving wooden chariots. Each task is a reminder the emperor's death is coming, and he's taking you with him, in spirit or flesh. You lie on your mat at night, the palace lanterns casting faint shadows, and wonder how to avoid this fate. Begging won't work. Rebellion is suicide. You're trapped, your life a thread in the emperor's eternal tapestry. The tomb's chambers grow more elaborate, marble floors, gilded walls, even fake stars painted on ceilings. You're told it's a paradise, but it feels like a cage. You place another figurine, a servant like you, and your hands shake. Will you be sealed here, alive or as clay? The priest's chants grow louder, the drums heavier. You think of those rituals, those altars still haunt you, and this feels like their final act. The emperor's world doesn't release you, not in life, not in death. You keep working, keep surviving, but the tomb's shadow grows longer, and you're running out of light. You're still bound to the emperor's world, the chill of those tomb chambers. Remember those clay figurines staring back, clinging to your thoughts like damp earth? Now, a spark of defiance flickers in your chest, but it's a dangerous flame. It's the Yuan dynasty, around 1300 CE, when Mongol rulers like Kublai Khan held China's throne, their empire vast but brittle. You're considering rebellion, a whisper of freedom, but you know the truth. Defying the emperor is a death sentence, and the odds are stacked against you. In this palace, resistance is a gamble where the house always wins. Picture yourself in a bustling courtyard, the air sharp with the scent of horses and burning charcoal. You're hauling sacks of rice for the imperial kitchens, your back screaming, while Mongol guards bark orders in a tongue you barely understand. The Yuan court, a melting pot of Chinese and Mongol traditions, was a powder keg of tension. Historical records show uprisings like the Red Turban Rebellion brewing as peasants and servants chafed under foreign rule. You're no warrior, just a servant scrubbing pots or mending armor, but you've heard the whispers, secret meetings in the stables, coded messages passed in laundry baskets. Rebellion sounds like hope, but it feels like a noose. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some rebels hid messages in mooncakes, a trick later mythologized during the Ming overthrow of the Yuan. Imagine you, sneaking a pastry stuffed with a note saying, "Strike at midnight," your hands shaking as you pass it to a co-conspirator. It's almost comical until you remember the penalty for getting caught. Historians still debate whether most servants joined rebellions out of ideology or desperation. But for you, it's both. You're tired of bowing, tired of the whip, tired of tombs waiting to claim you. But rebellion means risking everything. Your life, your family, even your memory. The palace is a fortress of eyes. Every corner hides a eunuchs. Remember that choice you dodged? Maids, even the old man sweeping the stables. You've seen what happens to rebels. Public executions in the market square, their heads displayed as warnings. The Yuan rulers, blending Mongol ferocity with Chinese bureaucracy, were ruthless records. Note thousands executed during uprisings. You're not naive. You know joining a plot means blood. But staying loyal isn't much safer. You've seen servants flogged for lesser spilled tray, a misspoken word. The emperor's divine mandate, even under Mongol rule, makes defiance treason, and treason is a one-way trip. Let's try for a laugh to cut the tension. Picture you, hiding a rebel note in your sandal, only to realize it's stuck to your foot during a bow to a noble. You're hobbling, praying no one notices the paper flapping like a flag. You'd laugh if you weren't terrified of the gallows, but the thought of rebellion keeps creeping in. You're polishing boots when a fellow servant, A wiry boy with darting eyes whispers about a plant torches, stolen knives, a midnight raid. You want to believe in it, in freedom, but you've seen the guards' curved blades, their horses trampling runaways. Hope is a fragile thing here. The palace's rhythm doesn't pause for your doubts. You're still hauling water, folding silk, dodging the overseer's glare. But now, every task feels like a choice: obey or resist. You overhear nobles plotting to crush unrest, their voices cold as the jade they wear. You're invisible to them, just another servant, but that's your strength. You could slip a knife into a guard's belt, pass a signal during a banquet, but every move is a risk. You think of your village, a fading memory of rice fields and laughter. If you rebel and fail, your family pays sold into slavery or worse. If you succeed, you might be free, or just dead in a different way. Another chuckle to lighten the mood. Imagine you're smuggling a rebel message, only to drop it in the emperor's soup. The whole court stares as you fish it out, stammering, just, seasoning. You'd wish the floor would swallow you, but there's no escape. The rebellion's pull is stronger now. You're tasked with cleaning the armory, and you linger, eyeing a dagger. Could you use it? Could you join the shadow meetings in the cellars? The wiry boy catches your gaze, nods slightly. It's an invitation, but it feels like a cliff's edge. The worst is the waiting. You're back to your task sweeping, carrying, bowing, but your mind's elsewhere. You notice others watching you, weighing your loyalty. Are they rebels or spies? Trust is a luxury you can't afford. You lie on your mat at night, the palace's lanterns casting long shadows, and weigh the odds. Rebellion could mean freedom, but it's a long shot. The emperor's power is a mountain. You're a pebble. You've seen uprisings, crushed bodies left in ditches, names erased. But you also remember the tomb's shadow, the rituals, the endless grind. Staying loyal hasn't saved you. It's just delayed the end. One more laugh to ease the strain. You're practicing a secret rebel signal, a subtle hand gesture, but you do it mid-task, and a guard thinks you're waving at him. He waves back, confused, and you're stuck grinning like an idiot, heart pounding. The palace is closing in. You're still serving, still surviving, but the spark of defiance grows. You think of the mooncake trick, the rebel's cunning. Could you be that clever, or would you just be another head on a pike? The emperor's world offers no safe paths, only choices that cut deeper than any blade. You're still trapped in the emperor's palace, the spark of rebellion. Remember those mooncake messages? Flickering, but not quite catching fire. Now, the ground beneath you shifts as the dynasty itself begins to crumble. It's the late Ming dynasty, around 1640 CE, and the empire is unraveling. Bandits roam the countryside, famine gnaws at the people, and rebels like Li Zicheng are knocking at the gates. You're a servant caught in the chaos, and loyalty to the emperor offers no shield when the world collapses. In this storm, you're not just surviving the palace, you're dodging the fallout of a dying regime. Picture yourself in a crumbling courtyard, the once polished tiles cracked, the air thick with smoke from distant fires. You're hauling water for a banquet that might never happen, your hands trembling as you hear cannon blasts beyond the city walls. The Ming dynasty, once a beacon of art and power, is buckling. Historical records show it fell in 1644 to rebels and Manchu invaders, with Emperor Chongzhen hanging himself on a hill behind the palace. You don't know the end yet, but you feel it. The court's a mess, nobles bicker, eunuchs hoard gold, remember that choice you weighed, and the emperor's orders grow erratic. Your job is to keep serving, but the palace feels like a sinking ship. Here's a quirky tidbit. During the Ming collapse, some servants were tasked with guarding the emperor's pet crickets, prized for their singing battles, even as rebels breached the walls. Imagine you, clutching a bamboo cage with a chirping insect, dodging panicked courtiers like it's your sacred duty. It's absurd, but you do it because orders are orders, even in chaos. Historians still debate whether the Ming's fall was due to internal rot or external pressure, but for you, it's just a whirlwind of danger. The palace, once a fortress, is now a trap, and you're caught in its crumbling heart. Your days are a blur of frantic tasks. One moment, you're sweeping halls littered with discarded scrolls. The next, you're hauling rice to feed soldiers who might desert by dawn. The emperor's divine mandate, once unshakable, feels hollow as you pass starving guards and hear whispers of rebellion in every corner. You've seen colleagues slip away, joining rebels or fleeing to the hills, but you're still here maybe out of fear, maybe habit. The court spies are everywhere, but they're distracted now, too busy saving their own skins. You dodge their gazes, keeping your head down, but the chaos makes every step a gamble. Let's try for a laugh to cut the tension. Picture you tripping over a pile of abandoned silk robes, landing face first in a noble spilled tea. You mutter, "At least the dynasty's not the only thing falling," as a maid snickers nearby, but the humor fades fast. The palace is a ghost of itself, banquets cancelled, lanterns unlit, gardens choked with weeds. You're tasked with pointless jobs, polishing jade for an emperor who barely leaves his chambers, or carrying messages that no one reads. The rebels are closing in, and you hear their drums at night, a pulse that drowns out the palace's rhythm. The emperor's desperation seeps into everything. You're sent to guard the armory, its swords half stolen by deserters. You wonder if you should grab one and run, but where to? The countryside is a battlefield. Bandits, rebels, and Manchu riders tear through villages like yours. You can still picture those rice fields. Loyalty to the emperor was supposed to protect you, but now it's a chain. You overhear eunuchs plotting to flee with gold, nobles begging for mercy that won't come. You're invisible, just a servant, but that's no comfort when the walls are breached. Another chuckle to lighten the mood. Imagine you're hauling a ceremonial gong, and it clangs mid-step, echoing like a call to surrender. A guard glares and you shrug, just practicing for the rebels' victory party. You'd laugh if your heart wasn't pounding. The chaos is relentless. You're back to carrying water, but the wells are low and the kitchens are bare. You see servants like Yusum praying, some stealing, some just staring blankly. The emperor's divine status, once a shield, is now a joke. You hear he's burning incense for miracles, but heaven's not answering. The worst is the helplessness. You're no soldier, no rebel, just a cog in a machine that's breaking apart. You think of those tomb figurines. They still haunt you, wondering if you'll be buried in this chaos instead. The palace's beauteous, red pillars, its lotus ponzus, a fading memory, replaced by cracked walls and bloodstains. You're told to keep serving, but for what? The emperor's orders are frantic. Guard this gate, hide this treasure, pray for victory. But you see the truth in the courtier's eyes. They're abandoning ship, leaving you to drown. One more laugh to ease the strain. You're stacking rice sacks, and one bursts, showering you in grains like a peasant snowstorm. A fellow servant quips, "Congrats, you're the richest man in the palace now." You grin, but it's hollow. The rebels are at the gates, and you're still here, hauling, bowing, surviving. You think of rebellion, of running, but the empire's collapse is bigger than you. Loyalty, defiance in either matters when the world burns. You're trapped, a servant to a ghost emperor in a ghost palace, and the end is rushing toward you. You're still caught in the emperor's crumbling world, the chaos of the dynasty's fall. Remember those cracked tiles and rebel drums, swallowing any hope of safety. Now, a new shadow creeps in whispers of ghostly duties that bind you to the emperor even after the palace falls silent. It's the early Qing dynasty, around 1650 CE, when Manchu rulers solidified their grip on China, blending their traditions with the old imperial ways. You're a servant, still hauling and bowing, but now you're haunted by tales that your service might stretch into the afterlife, not just in tombs, but as a spirit tethered to the emperor's ghost. Picture yourself in a moonlit palace hall, the air heavy with the scent of fading incense and musty silk. You're polishing bronze mirrors, your reflection distorted, while the wind outside howls like a warning. The Qing court, fresh from conquering the Ming, is obsessed with legacy, and the supernatural historical records note emperors like Kangxi consulting shamans to appease restless spirits. You've heard stories from older servants, emperors' ghosts demanding eternal loyalty, their spirits binding servants like you to serve in shadowy realms. Every creak in the palace feels like a summons, and you're starting to wonder if death is just another shift that never ends. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Qing rituals involved burning paper effigies of servants, complete with tiny tools, to employ them in the afterlife without killing them. Imagine you folding a paper version of your self-broom and all knowing it's meant to toil for the emperor's ghost. It's almost funny, until you realize it's your fate being burned. Historians still debate whether these ghost stories were propaganda to keep servants loyal or genuine beliefs tied to imperial cosmology. For you, they're not just tales, they're a chill that follows you through every task, making the palace feel like a haunted cage. Your days are a grind of old and new fears. You're still fetching water, mending robes, dodging the whip. Those Yuan-era floggings still sting in your memory. But now, you're also tasked with ritual duties, arranging spirit tablets, lighting incense for ancestors, or carrying offerings to appease unseen forces. The Qing emperors, blending Manchu shamanism with Chinese tradition, demand constant ceremonies to honor their dead. You're told it's to keep the cosmos balanced, but it feels like you're feeding ghosts. You work in silence, the palace's red walls dimmed by neglect, while priests chant about spirits watching from beyond. You're not sure what's worse, the emperor's living wrath or his spectral demands. Let's try for a laugh to cut the eerie vibe. Picture you, carrying a stack of paper effigies, tripping and scattering tiny servants across the floor, like ghostly confetti. A priest glares and you mutter, "Guess the afterlife's overstaffed now." You'd chuckle if your heart wasn't racing. The ghost stories aren't just gossip, they're woven into your work. You're sent to dark storerooms to fetch ritual goods, each shadow making you jump. You've heard of servants who swore they saw the emperor's ancestors in mirrors, demanding wine or silk. You tell yourself it's nonsense, but at night, alone, you're not so sure. The palace is a maze of superstition. You're tasked with guarding spirit altars, their flickering candles casting shapes that look too human. You've seen colleagues pray to their own ancestors, begging protection from the emperor's ghost. The Qing court's records mention shamans performing exorcisms to calm restless spirits. but you're just a servant, no one's saving you. You think of the tombs, those clay figurines still haunt you, wondering if this is worse, not just buried, but bound as a spirit, sweeping spectral halls forever. The emperor's divine status makes it plausible his soul is eternal, so why not yours, chained to his? Another chuckle to ease the tension. Imagine you're lighting incense, and a gust blows it out, making you whisper, "Sorry, ghost boss, technical difficulties." A nearby servant snickers, but the fear lingers. You're back to work, arranging offerings, jade, rice, even tiny paper horses for spirits you can't see. The palace feels alive, not with people but with something else. You overhear nobles debating omens, a comet, a dead crow, a dream of dragons. They're scared too, but they're not the ones burning paper versions of themselves. You're expendable, in life and beyond. The worst is the uncertainty. You lie on your mat at night, the palace's lanterns dim, and every creak sounds like a ghost's summons. You think of your village, a fading dream of open fields, now replaced by this haunted prison. Escape is impossible, deserters are still hunted, even in this new dynasty. Remember those Yuan rebels? You're told serving the emperor's spirit is an honor, but it feels like a curse. You're still dodging spies, still bowing, but now you're looking over your shoulder for shadows that don't breathe. The emperor's world doesn't let go, not even in death. One more laugh to soften the dread. You're folding paper effigies when one catches fire, flaring up like a tiny ghost riot. You stomp it out, muttering, "No uprising in the afterlife, please." A guard laughs, but you're shaken. The palace's ghost's real or nota, as demanding as the living emperor. You're back to carrying offerings, your hands steady but your mind racing. The Qing court's rituals bind you tighter than any chain, and you're starting to believe you'll never be free, not in this life or the next. The emperor's shadow is eternal, and you're caught in its grip. You're still trapped in the emperor's world, the ghostly whispers of eternal service. Those paper effigies still flicker in your mind, blending with the weight of a lifetime spent serving. Now, as the Qing dynasty hums along, around 1700 CE, you're reflecting on the crushing legacy of serving an emperor, a burden that doesn't end with the palace walls or even your last breath. It's a system that grinds you down, in life, in death, and in the stories history tells. You're a servant, still hauling, bowing, surviving, but you're starting to see the truth. Serving the Son of Heaven traps you in a cycle with no escape, not even in the echo of time. Picture yourself in a quiet corner of the Forbidden City, the dawn light painting the red walls gold, though the beauty feels hollow. You're folding silk banners for a festival, your hands worn from years of labor, while the distant sound of gongs signals another imperial ritual. The Qing court, under emperors like Kangxi, is a machine of order. Historical records praise its stability, with millions of subjects bound to a hierarchy that puts the emperor at heaven's peak. But for you, at the bottom, it's a prison of endless duty. You've survived rituals, rebellions, those mooncake plots linger, and tombs, but the weight of it old decades of service settles like dust you can't sweep away. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Qing servants were tasked with maintaining the emperor's ancestral portraits, dusting faces of dead rulers as if they still watched. Imagine you, wiping a painted emperor's stern glare, half expecting him to critique your technique. It's absurd, but it sums up your life serving the past as much as the present. Historians still debate whether this relentless servitude was the backbone of imperial power, or a cruel waste of lives. For you, it's not a theory, it's the ache in your bones, the fear in your gut, the knowledge that you're a footnote in the emperor's story, never your own. Your days are a blur of familiar tasks. You're carrying water, scrubbing floors, dodging overseers. Those whips still sting in memory. But now, you're older, maybe 40, though you feel ancient. Your hands tremble as you arrange incense for yet another ceremony, your back bent from years of hauling. The palace is the same jade statues, lotus ponds, but you see it differently. Every task, every bow, is a thread in a tapestry that glorifies the emperor, not you. You've heard of servants who rose, like eunuchs. That choice still haunts you. But most, like you, just endure. The emperor's divine mandate demands it, and you're too small to argue. Let's try for a laugh to ease the weight. Picture you, balancing a tray of ceremonial wine, only to slip and splash a noble's robes. You stammer, "New fashion trend, my lord?" As he glares like you've cursed his ancestors. You'd chuckle if you weren't braced for a flogging. But the moment passes, and you're back to work, hauling charcoal or mending curtains. The palace's rhythm never stops, but you're starting to see its cost. You think of colleagues lost to rituals, rebellions, or just exhaustion. Their names fade, but you carry their absence, a quiet grief woven into your days. The legacy of service is heavier than any load you've carried. You're told your work upholds the empire, but you feel like a brick in a wall, necessary, but unseen. You pass younger servants, their eyes still bright, and wonder if they'll see the trap before it closes. The palace's beauty, its gilded roofs, its starlit courtyards mocks you now. You've given your life to it, but what do you have? No family, no land, just a straw mat and a body breaking down. You think of your village, a distant dream of open fields, now buried under years of dust and duty. Another chuckle to lighten the load. Imagine you're polishing a bronze dragon, and it tips, nearly crushing your foot. You mutter, "Even the statues are out to get me," as a passing maid snickers. But the humor fades fast. You're back to folding silk, your mind drifting to the stories you've heard servants immortalized in records, but only as numbers, never names. The emperor's legacy is eternal. Yours is a whisper, lost in the wind. You've survived so much tombs, chaos, ghosts. Those paper effigies still burn in your mind. But survival isn't freedom. It's just another day of serving. The worst is the realization that it never ends. Even if you die, the emperor's world claims you maybe as a ghost, maybe as a forgotten name in a chronicle. You lie on your mat at night, the palace's lanterns dim, and feel the weight of it all. You're not just serving an emperor, you're serving a system that outlives you, a machine that grinds souls into dust. You think of rebellion, of running, but you're too tired, too bound. The emperor's shadow stretches across centuries, and you're caught in it, a servant forever. One more laugh to soften the ache, you're carrying a stack of scrolls, and one unravels, tripping you like a prankster ghost. You grumble, "Even the paperwork's against me," as a guard chuckles. But the truth sinks in, you're a cog, nothing more. The palace, the empire, the emperor's divine will, they've taken everything. You keep working, keep surviving, but the legacy of your service is a chain, not a crown. And as the years pile up, you wonder if history will remember you at all. Now, let the world soften. The palace's weight drift away like leaves on a quiet stream. You're resting on your mat, the night folding around you, gentle as a sigh. The lantern's glow fades. their light a whisper of amber, blending with the hum of a distant breeze through the courtyard's ancient trees. The emperor's demands, those endless tasks, those ghostly chains, remember those paper effigies, they're slipping now, melting into the stillness. Your breath slows, each inhale a release, each exhale a step deeper into calm. The palace, with its red walls and golden dragons, feels far away, a story told in hushed tones. You're not a servant here, not bound, just a soul cradled by the night's embrace. Let the rituals, the rebellions, the tombs fade. They can't reach you now. The air is cool, the world hushed, and your eyelids grow heavy, like petals closing at dusk. Imagine a field, not your lost village, but a place where no emperor rules, where the only sound is wind through tall grass. You're safe, wrapped in this moment, the weight of centuries lifting. Sleep is near, a friend waiting to carry you away. Let the palace's shadows dissolve, let the emperor's voice fall silent. All that remains is this gentle, quiet, this soft hum of peace. Drift, now, into a dream where no chains bind you, where the only task is to rest, to float, to be free. Good night, sweet traveler, until the stars call you back.